Hello.
I still remember the day I first held him in my arms, how impossibly small he was, how his tiny fingers curled around mine as if he already knew I would always be there for him. Time moved far too quickly. One moment, he was a boy who needed me to tie his shoes, and now at 17, he towers over me, his voice deeper, his shoulders broader. I work as a secretary at a fashion company, surrounded by designers, models, and the ever-present hum of creativity. It's a world of movement, of constant reinvention. Yet when I come home, I am faced with something that feels even more uncertain. My son, Adrian, and the changes happening in him. Started subtly. At first, I thought it was just the usual teenage mood swings. He was quieter, more distant. He spent more time in his room, his door often closed, though he had never been the secretive type before. When I asked how school was, he gave vague, one-word answers. Fine. Nothing. I told myself it was normal. He was growing up, becoming independent. But then I started noticing other things. The way he would watch me sometimes, as if studying me. The way he seemed hesitant to speak, like there was something he wanted to say but couldn't. The way his presence felt different. One evening I came home late from work, exhausted from back-to-back meetings. The house was quiet except for the low murmur of the television. Adrian was on the couch, his long legs stretched out, but when I walked in, he sat up immediately, his eyes lingering on me for a moment before looking away. "You're late," he said. His tone wasn't accusatory, just observant. "There was a last-minute client meeting," I explained, kicking off my heels and dropping onto the couch beside him. Adrian nodded but said nothing else. His gaze flickered toward me again, a quick glance before he turned his attention back to the screen. I tried to ignore the unease that crept up my spine. Why does this feel different? A week later, I noticed something else. His sudden attentiveness. In the mornings, as I got ready for work, I would catch him watching me from the kitchen. His expression unreadable. When I left the house, he always seemed to be near the door, his goodbye lingering a second too long. One Saturday morning I was in the kitchen making coffee when he walked in. His hair still messy from sleep. "Morning, Mom," he said, his voice softer than usual. "Good morning, sweetheart." He hovered near the counter, watching as I poured my coffee. "Do you need something?" I asked, stirring in a bit of cream. "No. I don't know. You look nice today." It was such an unexpected comment that I nearly spilled my coffee. I smiled, pushing past the strange feeling his words left behind. "Well, thank you. That's sweet of you to say." He hesitated as if wanting to say more, but then he just shook his head and grabbed an apple before heading back upstairs. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was overanalyzing normal teenage behavior. But the moments kept piling up. His long stares, his hesitation, the way he would brush past me in the hallway just a little too closely, the way his fingers would graze mine when handing me something. One night, after I had gone to bed, I heard soft footsteps near my door. My breath caught, and for a moment I thought I was dreaming. But then I saw the shadow just outside my room, hesitating. "Adrian!" called softly. There was a long pause before his voice came through the door. "Yeah. Did you need something?" Another pause. Then finally, "No. Just good night." I waited until his footsteps retreated before exhaling, my heart pounding for reasons I couldn't quite name. What was happening between us? Was it simply the shift that occurs as a boy grows into a man? Was I reading too much into things? The next day I decided to confront him. Not about anything specific, but just to open the door for whatever was weighing on him. "Adrian," I said over dinner, "is something on your mind? You've been acting different lately." He looked up sharply, his fork freezing midway to his mouth. "Different how?" I sighed, placing my own fork down. "I don't know. You just seem distant sometimes, and other times the opposite. I just want to make sure everything's okay." He looked down at his plate, his jaw tight. "I'm fine." But I could see it. something in his eyes, in the way he avoided looking at me directly. "Adrian," I said gently. He finally met my gaze, and for the first time I saw it clearly. Something unspoken, something unsure, something hesitant. The moment stretched between us, the air thick with everything left unsaid. Then, just as quickly, he shook his head, forcing a small smile. "I promise, Mom. I'm fine." I nodded, though I didn't believe him. Something had changed. And whether I was ready for it or not, I had to face it. That day started like any other. The early morning rush, the hum of traffic as I made my way to work, the endless phone calls and meetings that blurred together in a monotonous rhythm. But even in the middle of the busy day, I found myself thinking about Adrian. He had been acting strange lately. His eyes lingering too long. His words carrying a weight I wasn't sure how to interpret. At first, I dismissed it as my imagination, as nothing more than the natural shifts of a boy growing into a man. But the signs had become harder to ignore. That afternoon, when I finally arrived home, I was greeted with an unfamiliar scent wafting from the kitchen. Something warm, savory. A soft instrumental melody played in the background, and the lights were dimmed just enough to give the room a cozy glow. I paused in the doorway, setting down my bag. "Adrian." He turned from the stove, his face lighting up with a smile. He had an apron on, one of mine, far too small for his broadening shoulders, and in his hands was a wooden spoon, stirring a pot of what smelled like homemade pasta sauce. "Hey, Mom. You're home early." I raised an eyebrow, glancing around. The dining table had been set with more care than usual. 2 plates, folded napkins, even a candle flickering softly between them. "What's all this?" I asked. Adrian shrugged, though there was something in his eyes that told me this wasn't as casual as he wanted me to believe. "I just thought, you work a lot. You do so much for me. I wanted to do something nice for you." The words were simple, but the sincerity in his voice sent a warmth through my chest. "That's really sweet," I said, stepping closer. "You didn't have to do all this." He looked at me, then really looked at me. His dark eyes held something I couldn't quite place, something deep and unreadable. "I wanted to," he said softly. For a moment, I wasn't sure what to say. I had spent years making sure Adrian had everything he needed. Late nights helping with homework, making sure he ate well, encouraging him through his struggles. I had always been the one taking care of him. And yet here he was, standing in my kitchen, cooking dinner for me like it was the most natural thing in the world. He had grown so much. "You look beautiful, by the way," he said suddenly, breaking the silence. The words caught me off guard. I glanced down at myself. I was still in my work clothes. Nothing special, just a fitted blouse and a pencil skirt, my hair slightly disheveled from the long day. I wasn't dressed up. I wasn't wearing makeup. And yet, the way he said it made me feel like I was. "Thank you," I said carefully. He smiled, stirring the sauce one last time before turning off the stove. "Go sit. I'll bring everything over." A part of me wanted to protest, to remind him that I was the parent, that it was my job to take care of him, not the other way around. But I didn't. Instead, I sat down at the table and watched as he served the food. His movements confident, practiced. "This looks amazing," I murmured as he placed the plate in front of me. Adrian sat down across from me, resting his chin on his hand as he watched me take my first bite. "So, what do you think?" I smiled, swallowing. "It's perfect." His expression softened. "Good. I'm glad." We ate in comfortable silence for a while, the candle flickering between us, casting shadows along the walls. It felt intimate in a way I hadn't expected, in a way that was unfamiliar but not unwelcome. Then out of nowhere he spoke again. "Mom." I looked up. His fingers traced the edge of his fork absently, his gaze thoughtful. "Can I ask you something?" Something about the way he said it made my heart pick up speed. "Of course," I said, setting my glass down. He hesitated for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. Then, in a quiet voice, he asked, "What was your first time like?" The question hit me like a wave. I blinked, certain I had misheard him. My first time. I echoed, my voice slightly unsteady. He nodded, watching me closely. I was just thinking about it, he continued, his voice softer now. I mean, it's such a big thing, right? People act like it's supposed to be this perfect, magical moment, but I don't know. I feel like no one ever really talks about it honestly. I swallowed, my mind scrambling for an answer. It was a long time ago, I said carefully. Adrian nodded, but he didn't look away. Was it special? I let out a quiet breath, feeling the weight of the question settle over me. Not really, I admitted. I mean, I thought it was at the time. But looking back, I was young. I didn't really know what I wanted yet. He listened intently, his expression unreadable. I guess that's normal, he murmured after a pause. You don't always know what you want at first. I studied him, trying to understand where this was coming from. Adrian, is something on your mind? He hesitated again, his fingers tightening around his fork. Then finally he sighed and leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. Never mind. It's nothing. But I knew it wasn't nothing. The air between us felt heavier now, charged with something I couldn't quite name. I wanted to push, to ask him why he had brought it up, but something in his expression stopped me. So instead, I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. If you ever want to talk about anything, I said gently, I'm here. His fingers tightened around mine for just a moment before he let go. Thanks, Mom. We didn't speak about it again that night, but as I lay in bed later, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed between us. And I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my thoughts tangled and restless. Adrian's words lingered in my mind. His unexpected question about my first time, the way his voice had softened when he asked if it had been special. He had looked at me differently tonight, not with the careless curiosity of a boy, but with something deeper, something more knowing. I turned onto my side, exhaling slowly. The house was quiet except for the faint ticking of the clock in the hallway. But I wasn't the only one awake. A soft knock at my door broke the silence. I sat up, my heartbeat quickening. Adrian! The door opened just a crack, enough for me to see his silhouette in the dim glow of the hallway light. Hey, Mom, he murmured. I glanced at the clock. It was well past midnight. What is it, sweetheart? He hesitated before stepping inside. He was wearing a loose t-shirt and sweatpants, his hair slightly disheveled as if he had been tossing and turning just as much as I had. I couldn't sleep, he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. I sighed, nodding toward the bed. Come sit. He moved toward me, settling at the edge of the bed with a quiet sigh. The mattress dipped slightly under his weight, and for a moment, we just sat there in the dim glow of my bedside lamp, neither of us speaking. Then softly he asked, Mom, what do women need? I blinked, caught off guard. What do you mean? I asked carefully. He exhaled slowly, looking down at his hands. I don't know. I feel like there's so much I don't understand. People say things like, just be confident or just be nice. But it feels like there's more to it than that. And I don't want to just guess. There was a weight to his words, a sincerity that made my chest tighten. I studied him, the boy who had once clung to my hand as he learned to walk, who had needed me to tie his shoelaces, who had once asked me why the stars didn't fall from the sky. And now, here he was, grown and asking me questions I wasn't sure how to answer. Well, I said slowly, every woman is different. There's no single answer. He nodded, waiting for me to continue. But if you're asking what really matters, I think it's about being present, paying attention. It's not just about saying the right things. It's about seeing someone, truly understanding them, knowing what makes them happy, what makes them feel safe. He was quiet for a moment, taking in my words. So, it's about listening. I smiled faintly. Listening, yes, but also feeling. Knowing when to be soft, when to be strong. It's not about being perfect. It's about making someone feel like they matter. He nodded again, his brow slightly furrowed as he processed what I had said. "I guess I just don't want to mess things up," he murmured. I reached over, tucking a stray lock of hair behind his ear the way I used to when he was little. "You won't," I said gently. "Because you care enough to ask." He exhaled, his shoulders relaxing slightly. "Thanks, Mom." I squeezed his hand, feeling the warmth of his fingers against mine. "Always, sweetheart." For a moment, he just sat there, his gaze lingering on me in a way that felt almost searching. Then finally he gave a small, tired smile. "Okay," he said softly. "Good night, Mom." He stood, hesitating for just a second before leaning down and pressing a light kiss to my forehead. Then, without another word, he slipped out of my room, leaving me alone in the quiet once more. But this time the silence felt different. And I wasn't sure why. The days that followed felt different, though I couldn't quite put my finger on why. It wasn't just the lingering tension of our late-night conversation. It was something deeper, something woven into the way Adrian moved around me now. The way his eyes stayed on me a second too long, the way his voice softened when he spoke to me, the way he seemed to be listening to everything I said with an intensity that felt deliberate. And then it hit me. Everything he had asked me about women, about what they needed, about what made them feel special, he hadn't been asking in general. He had been asking about me. I had been too distracted in the moment to see it, too caught up in the tenderness of our conversation to realize what he was truly searching for. But now, in the quiet moments that followed, it became impossible to ignore. The way he watched me when he thought I wasn't looking. The way he hesitated before speaking, as if weighing his words carefully. The way his presence felt heavier, more present. And worst of all, the way it made my heart beat just a little faster. I tried to push it away, to rationalize it, to remind myself that he was just growing up, just learning, just figuring himself out. But even as I told myself these things, a quiet voice in the back of my mind whispered that I was lying. Felt it too. And I didn't know what to do. That Saturday, I woke up earlier than usual, the soft morning light filtering through my bedroom curtains. I had barely gotten out of bed when I heard a faint knock at my door. "Come in," I called, my voice still thick with sleep. The door opened, and Adrian stood there, his hair messy, his t-shirt slightly wrinkled as if he had just woken up himself. "Morning," he murmured, his eyes scanning me briefly before settling on my face. "Morning," I said, stifling a yawn. "You're up early." He shrugged, stepping inside without invitation. "I made coffee," smiled. "You're spoiling me these days." His lips quirked up in a half-smile, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he walked over to my bedside and set the steaming cup on my nightstand. "Thanks, sweetheart," I said, reaching for it. As I took a sip, I realized he was still standing there, watching me, his expression unreadable. "What?" I asked, feeling suddenly self-conscious. He hesitated for just a second before shaking his head. "Nothing." But it wasn't nothing. There was something in the way he looked at me, something that made my breath catch, something that made my fingers tighten around the cup. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then quietly he said, "I like doing things for you." I swallowed. "That's sweet of you." His eyes held mine. "I mean it." I looked away, focusing on the coffee in my hands as if it held the answer to whatever was happening between us. But it didn't. And neither did I. Over the next few days, I started noticing the small things. The way Adrian was always there, whether I needed something or not. The way he would find excuses to be near me, to brush against me in passing, to touch my hand when he handed me something. The way his voice dropped just a little when he spoke to me. His words slower, more careful. And then there were the compliments. "You look really pretty today. That dress suits you. I love the way your hair looks like that." At first, I laughed them off, brushing them aside as innocent observations. But then they became more frequent, more personal, more intimate. "You know, I think you're the most beautiful woman I know." I had been in the kitchen when he said it, standing by the stove, stirring a pot of soup. I froze, my fingers tightening around the spoon. "That's a sweet thing to say," I said lightly, trying to keep my voice steady. But when I turned, he was already watching me, his expression unreadable. "It's true," he said simply. And then he walked away, leaving me standing there, my heart pounding. It was a quiet evening when Adrian finally said the words that made everything feel real. I was curled up on the couch, reading a book, when he sat down beside me, closer than usual. For a few moments, he didn't say anything. Then, his voice soft, he asked, "Mom?" I looked up. He hesitated, his fingers tracing the seam of the cushion. Then, almost shyly, he said, "Do you ever think about love?" I blinked, caught off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he trailed off, exhaling slowly, "do you ever think about what it means to really love someone?" Something in my chest tightened. "I suppose so," I said carefully. "Why?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned to me fully, his dark eyes searching mine. "I think about it a lot lately," he admitted. I swallowed. "And have you figured anything out?" A small smile ghosted his lips. "Maybe." The air between us felt thick, charged with something I didn't know how to name. I should have changed the subject. I should have laughed it off. But I didn't. Instead, I whispered, "Tell me." His gaze flickered to my lips before meeting my eyes again. "I think love is about truly seeing someone," he said softly. "About knowing them in a way no one else does." My breath caught. "I think love is about wanting to be better for them," he continued. "About knowing exactly what they need before they even say it." My fingers curled into the fabric of my sweater, my pulse roaring in my ears. "And I think," he hesitated, his voice barely above a whisper, "I think love is when you can't imagine your life without someone." Silence stretched between us, heavy and unspoken. Then, slowly, carefully, he reached for my hand. His fingers brushed against mine, warm and steady. I should have pulled away. I didn't. And in that moment I knew. I had already crossed a line I could never uncross.
Bye.